Tonight on Drama Alert Reddit, imagine waking from a coma to find your twin sister has married your husband, stolen your identity, and is carrying his child. Now imagine discovering she's the reason you were in that coma. This story has more twists than a bloody spiral staircase, and trust me, you won't see the ending coming. Let's get into it. I opened my eyes to fluorescent lights and the smell of industrial-strength disinfectant, which is how I learned that being in a coma for 6 months doesn't feel like anything at all. You just blink, and half a year has vanished like smoke. The nurse looked at me like I'd risen from the dead, which I suppose I had in a way, and within minutes there were doctors poking and prodding and asking me to squeeze fingers and recite my name. Sarah Mitchell, I told them, born March 15th, 1992, identical twin sister Emma, married to James Mitchell for 3 years. All the facts lined up perfectly in my head, nice and orderly, completely unaware that literally none of it was true anymore. My mum showed up within the hour, and that's when I knew something was properly wrong, because she looked at me like I was a ghost she'd rather not see. Not relief, not joy, just this horrible, guilty expression that made my stomach drop even through the morphine haze. "Sarah," she said, and her voice cracked on my name. "Oh, Sarah, love." She wouldn't meet my eyes, kept looking at the door like she wanted to bolt. I asked where James was, my husband, and she went absolutely white. He's coming," she said, but the way she said it made my blood run cold. When James finally walked through that door 6 hours later, he had Emma with him, my identical twin sister, wearing my favorite Bowden dress, the blue one with the white flowers that I'd bought for our anniversary dinner. But that's not what made my heart stop. What made my heart stop was the way James's hand rested on the small of her back, the way she leaned into him, the way they moved together like a single unit. And then I saw it. My grandmother's engagement ring, the one James had proposed with, on that beach in Cornwall, sitting pretty on Emma's finger. What the bloody hell is going on? I managed to croak out, and Emma started crying immediately. These big, dramatic sobs that I'd seen her use since we were children to get out of trouble. James looked gutted. Actually gutted. But he sat down next to my bed and took my hand, the hand that didn't have a wedding ring on it anymore. I noticed, and said the most insane sentence I'd ever heard. "Sarah, Emma and I got married 4 months ago. We thought you weren't going to wake up." The room started spinning, and it had nothing to do with the head injury. 6 months in a coma, and they'd given up on me in 2. My own husband and my twin sister. I looked at my mum, desperate for her to tell me this was some sort of sick joke, but she was staring at the floor like the linoleum held the secrets of the universe. "How could you?" I whispered, and Emma launched into this whole speech about how she'd only been trying to help at first, visiting me every day, keeping James company, because he was so devastated, and somehow, they'd fallen in love. She said it like it was a bloody Nicholas Sparks novel, instead of the most disgusting betrayal imaginable. But here is where it gets properly mental. I spent the next week in hospital doing physio and trying to process the fact that my entire life had been stolen, when this detective showed up asking questions about my accident. Car crash, they told me. I'd been driving home from visiting Emma, actually, and my car had gone off the road on a sharp bend near her cottage in the Cotswolds. Single vehicle accident. They'd ruled initially, but now they had questions, because it turned out my brake lines had been cut, not worn, not corroded, deliberately severed. I sat there in that hospital bed, and suddenly every single piece clicked into place like the world's most horrifying puzzle. Emma had been acting strange that day. I visited her, nervous and twitchy, insisting I stay for one more cup of tea, one more biscuit, just a few more minutes. She'd walked me to my car, given me this weird, tight hug that lasted too long, and then she'd watched me drive away down that winding country road with its sharp turns and steep drops. The road she knew I'd be taking, the road where my brakes would fail. My twin sister had tried to murder me, and when she'd only managed to put me in a coma instead, She'd simply stolen my life like it was a handbag she'd been coveting. I told the detective everything. Every conversation I could remember from the months before the accident. How Emma had been acting jealous of my marriage, making comments about how James was wasted on me, how she'd always wanted what I had since we were children. The detective took notes, his expression getting grimmer by the second. They'd search her cottage, he said. They'd investigate properly this time. But the absolute kicker. While I am processing attempted murder, Emma shows up at the hospital with her solicitor and serves me with papers. Legal papers claiming that I am actually Emma and she's actually Sarah. She'd spent 6 months not just stealing my husband, but my entire bloody identity. She'd been to the bank, to the Devla, to every government office you can imagine, claiming there'd been a mix-up with our records since birth. She had our birth certificates, the real ones, and apparently forged ones. She had photographs she'd doctored. She had a whole elaborate story about how our parents had accidentally swapped our names as babies, and we'd only just discovered the truth. It was completely mental, completely unhinged, and she'd done it all while I was lying unconscious in a hospital bed. My bank accounts were in her name now. My house, the one James and I had bought together, was legally hers. My job had called her, thinking she was me, and she'd resigned on my behalf, citing health reasons. She'd even changed her national insurance number to match mine. I sat in that hospital room, reading these papers, and I actually laughed. Proper hysterical laughter that made the nurses come running. Because what else can you do when your twin sister has tried to kill you, failed, married your husband, stolen your identity, and is now trying to legally erase you from existence? Oh, and did I mention she was 3 months pregnant? Because of course she was. Perfect little cherry on top of this nightmare Sunday. My mum finally broke down and admitted she'd known about the identity swap. Emma had convinced her it was for the best, that I'd be confused when I woke up, that it would be easier this way. Emma had always been the manipulative one, the one who could talk her way into or out of anything, and she'd apparently convinced our mum that this was somehow an act of mercy. I looked at my own mother and realised I didn't know her at all. But here is the thing about being a twin. We think alike, even when we're mortal enemies. I knew exactly how Emma's mind worked, and I knew she'd have made a mistake somewhere. They always do. The clever ones, they get so caught up in their own brilliance that they miss something obvious. I got myself a solicitor. A brilliant woman named Margaret who'd seen everything and was completely unfazed by my story. And we started building a case. Medical records showing my injuries were consistent with brake failure. Testimony from friends who could verify personality differences between Emma and me. Bank records showing suspicious transfers right before my accident. Phone records proving Emma had researched brake line cutting 2 weeks before my crash. The detective was building a criminal case. We were building a civil one. And then we found the insurance policy. Emma had taken out a £500,000 life insurance policy on me 6 weeks before my accident, listing herself as the sole beneficiary. She'd forged my signature, did quite a good job of it too, but not perfect. Margaret nearly jumped out of her chair when we found it. This wasn't just identity theft. This was premeditated attempted murder with a paper trail. The police arrested Emma on a Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of her having lunch with James at Café Rouge in town. Apparently, she screamed and cried and insisted there'd been a terrible mistake, that I was the one trying to steal her life, not the other way around. James, bless him, looked absolutely broken. He'd believed every word she'd told him, swallowed every lie, and now he was sitting across from his pregnant wife, realizing he'd married a would-be murderer. The trial was an absolute circus. Emma's defense tried to claim I was the one who'd swapped our identities, that I was the jealous twin, that I'd cut my own brake lines for attention. It was laughable, really, but they had to try something. The prosecution laid it all out. The insurance policy, the brake lines, the identity theft, the pattern of manipulation going back to our childhood. Character witnesses came forward with stories about Emma's jealousy, her obsession with having what I had, her increasingly unhinged behavior. The jury took 4 hours to find her guilty of attempted murder, fraud, and identity theft. The judge gave her 15 years. 15 years for trying to kill her own twin sister and steal her entire existence. James filed for divorce before she was even sentenced. Turned out the marriage was void anyway, since she'd used my name on the license, not hers. I got my identity back, my house back, my bank accounts back. Margaret was an absolute legend. James tried to apologize, tried to explain how Emma had manipulated him, how she'd been so convincing, how she'd played on his grief and loneliness. I told him to bugger off. You don't accidentally marry your wife's identical twin while she's in a coma. You make choices. And he'd made his. My mum's another story. She begged for forgiveness, claimed Emma had manipulated her too, that she'd been scared and confused. I told her I'd think about it, which is more than she deserves. Honestly, she chose Emma over me when it mattered most. That's not something you just forgive over Sunday roast. The pregnancy added another layer of absolute chaos to the whole thing. Emma gave birth in prison to a baby girl, and James, poor, stupid James, wanted to be involved. He took a paternity test, confirmed she was his, and now he's got this constant reminder of the worst decision of his life. I almost feel sorry for him, but not quite. As for me, I am rebuilding. Got my old job back, though, explaining the 6-month gap on my 105 is always a laugh. Oh, just in a coma while my evil twin stole my life. Standard stuff. I've started seeing someone new. Actually, a bloke named Tom, who finds the whole story absolutely mental but refreshingly doesn't run screaming. We met at physio. He was recovering from a motorcycle accident. Nothing bonds people quite like trauma and repetitive exercises. The weird part is sometimes I'll catch myself in the mirror, and for just a second, I see Emma. Same face, same eyes, but completely different souls. She wanted to be me so badly she was willing to kill me for it. And the thing that keeps me up at night, if I hadn't woken up, she would have gotten away with it. She would have lived my entire life, raised my husband's children, died as me. I'd be the forgotten twin, the one who tragically died in a car accident. But I did wake up. And Emma's in prison, James is alone, and I am still here, still Sarah, still very much alive. They say revenge is a dish, best served cold. But I didn't need revenge. The truth was enough. The truth. And a brilliant solicitor, and a detective who actually gave a damn. Last week, I got a letter from Emma, prison letter, her handwriting, begging me to visit her, saying she's sorry, that she never meant for things to go so far, that she still loves me. I burned it. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some are meant to be napalmed into oblivion. I am moving to Edinburgh next month, actually. Fresh start, new city, away from all of this madness. Tom's coming with me, which is either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, but I am done questioning good things when they happen. I've learned that life can be stolen in an instant, and I am not wasting another second of mine. So if you are wondering whether I've forgiven Emma, whether we'll have some tearful reconciliation, absolutely not. She tried to murder me, married my husband, stole my identity, and would have collected £500,000 when I finally died. That's not sisterly rivalry, that's proper villain behaviour. And villains don't get redemption arcs in my story. They get 15 years in prison and a lifetime of knowing they failed. I am Sarah Mitchell. I am a coma survivor, identity theft victim, and the woman who proved you can't keep a good Brit down, even when your own twin tries to erase you from existence. And honestly, I've never felt more alive. Thanks for watching Drama Alert Reddit. If this story absolutely shocked you, smash that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable confessions. What would you do if your twin betrayed you like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.